Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about something a little bit different, and that is ADHD and addictions. Something that I have absolutely come to terms with for the most part, but definitely still struggle with a little bit, is the fact that I leaned on alcohol for many years. So in today's video, I want to talk a little bit about my journey and my relationship with alcohol throughout a lot of my 30s and even into my 40s, my sobriety, and why I chose to drink before I knew that I had ADHD. So it was 2009 and I was not sleeping well. I had insomnia all the time, and at this time, I didn't drink at all. I had a friend who was a little bit more of a heavy drinker, and she told me that if I started having a glass of wine before bed, I would sleep better. And so I did that. And I continued to do that. And the glass of wine that gave me that buzz initially, it eventually wore off. And that glass of wine didn't quite make me feel the way that I felt when I began drinking it. And so I graduated to 2 glasses. And within a couple of years, I would drink an entire bottle of wine. Now, alcohol's a depressant, and people with ADHD struggle with depression and anxiety, and I definitely fell in that camp with depression and severe anxiety. And so the alcohol exasperated it. I didn't know that I had ADHD at the time, but I was absolutely depleted of dopamine. I also wasn't sleeping very well when I would drink. I would fall asleep or pass out really quickly and then wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and not be able to get back to sleep. That was not good for my physical health or my mental health. Alcohol gives us a lot of dopamine, and drugs do the same thing. Candy does the same thing. Binge eating also gives us a lot of dopamine. With alcohol specifically, what it does is it robs your body of producing natural dopamine. Sleep also gives us a lot of dopamine, and when you're drinking too much and not sleeping very well, you're depriving yourself of having a good night's sleep, which is additionally robbing you of dopamine. Low dopamine can lead to depression. It's a motivation and a happy neurotransmitter. And then alcohol is a depressant that exasperates that. So that's kind of the vicious circle that you're in when you are struggling with addiction. I also drank to shut off my brain. My brain is very busy. There's inattentive ADHD, there's hyperactive ADHD, and then there's combined ADHD, and I have combined ADHD, so inattentive and hyperactive. But for me, the hyperactive part of my ADHD is very much an internal phenomenon with my brain never shutting off. And when I was depressed and really struggling in the pits of my alcoholism, my brain would catastrophize every situation that I could dream up. Something hadn't happened yet, and maybe I'd have a little bit of social anxiety over it, and I would turn it into the absolute worst thing in the world. Things that had already happened, I would relive them in a really negative way. And it was like this spiral. So when 5 o'clock would come around and I had that opportunity to go and get a bottle of wine to shut off my brain, I absolutely jumped to doing that. Part of our executive dysfunction is also that we are very impulsive. So I would wake up in the morning and say, today I'm not going to drink. And then 5 o'clock would roll around and I would go to a liquor store, usually 2 or 3 different liquor stores, because you don't want anyone to see you as a regular. Wasn't fooling anyone with that one. And I would pick up that bottle of wine. And this happened for years. I would pass out at 9 o'clock at night and wake up at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, sometimes 4 in the morning. I was sleep deprived. I was depressed. I had a ton of anxiety, and I was caught in a negative feedback loop over and over again. The worst rendition of Groundhog Day. I don't know if you've seen that movie or not. For me, the rock bottom was really from my kids telling me that they didn't like it when I drank. I sometimes would get sensitive and cry easily, or I would be a little bit shorter than I normally am and a little bit more abrupt in my communication. And on top of that, that bottle of wine wasn't doing it for me anymore. I could drink a bottle of wine and I knew that I had alcohol in my system and not drive. My mom was killed by a drunk driver, so that is something that, thank goodness, not that she's gone, of course it's horrible, but thank goodness I have that as an experience, because it was the thing that made it so that I would never, absolutely ever drink and drive. But that bottle of wine wasn't really hitting the same way that it used to. I was completely functional. I could speak without slurring my words. And that really, between knowing that my kids hated it when I drank and knowing that if I wanted to really chase that buzz, that dopamine high that I really love being in and shutting off my brain completely, I was going to have to graduate to a bottle of wine and a glass. And that would have only lasted for a while, and then it would have been a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. And we know 3 glasses in a bottle for most of us if you're drinking 9-ounce glasses. So for me, I really had to make a hard decision and say, okay, if you want to live your life and you want to leave a legacy that doesn't include my wife is a drunk, my mom is a drunk, you better stop drinking. And so I did. And it was really easy to quit. I didn't have a physical dependency on alcohol. I never had the shakes. I was never drinking at 9 a.m., not to minimize my substance abuse issues. But it was really easy. It was all psychological. The way that I quit drinking was someone recommended this book to me. It's Alan Carr's Quit Drinking Without Willpower. This book was a game changer for me because basically all of the reasons that I thought I needed to drink to be more social, I needed to drink to shut off my brain, I needed to drink to, sleep better. This book debunked all of that. It explained how I was putting poison into my body, how I was destroying my organs, how I was destroying my brain. That made it really easy for me to quit, because all of the reasons that I thought I needed alcohol were the exact same reasons that were stopping me from living my best life, because alcohol was holding me back. Just an interesting stat. The risk of addictions for women with ADHD is 13% higher next to our neurotypical counterpart, according to the ADHD Addiction Center. And for me, once I quit drinking and understood my ADHD and really started embracing who I am without alcohol and why I might have fallen into that addiction trap, it gave me grace. Knowing that the cards were a little bit more stacked against me, and I've had a little bit of childhood trauma as well. I mean, who hasn't? But I have. Mother passed away when I was young and a few other things. It really made it so that I could have a little bit more grace for myself. I think I still struggle at times with the guilt of any trauma I gave to my kids when they saw me way too often not sober, intoxicated, and I am sad that I missed out on a lot of their childhood because I was more interested in the after 5 o'clock activities than I was at being a complete hands-on mom. That doesn't mean I was a bad mom. That doesn't mean that if you drink or if you smoke cannabis, you're a bad parent, but you're not fully present. A person is not fully present when they're under the influence. So why did I make this video and put myself out there the way that I did? Because I am not going to be a hypocrite. And I do directly relate my alcoholism to 1, childhood trauma, 2, ADHD, and 3, an autism diagnosis. People who are neurodivergent, people on the spectrum, people with ADHD, we are constantly being ridiculed, judged. We feel like we're lazy. We feel like we're unmotivated. We feel like we are coming up short. And turning to an addictive substance is not the answer. When you're continuously on the floor and feeling like you're being kicked while you're down, it makes sense that some of us do go to that. So my PSA for anybody who might be drinking a little bit too much wine or smoking a little bit too much cannabis or whatever your thing is, eating a little bit too much food, is to give yourself grace and try to cut back. If you normally drink 2 glasses a night, try to go down to only 1 and see how that is for a while, and then maybe half a glass. If you are using cannabis heavily and you'd like to slow that down, slow that down. If you are struggling with binge eating, go get a big bag of carrots or cucumbers or, carrot sticks and hummus and binge eat those. I don't know. I just wanted to come on here and tell a little bit more about my story. I am very, very passionate about ADHD coaching and mindset because I am a poster child. I am living proof of how hard it can be to have ADHD and to be autistic and to be a woman and to be in this time in the world where we're just through a pandemic. The pandemic screwed a lot of us up. That's a huge reason a lot of people started drinking more, using cannabis more. Capitalism is running rampant. Everything is so expensive. But I can tell you from experience, from someone who is sober now and from someone who is on the floor Googling things that, would really make you go, is she okay? Because I was so low that sobriety and practicing mindfulness and trying to get enough water in your body and eating healthy when you can and when you can afford to is the way to living a fulfilling life. If you have ADHD and you're struggling to get natural dopamine and you maybe don't want to do medication or you're not formally diagnosed, there are a bunch of things that you can do with supplements. Talk to your doctor about supplements for ADHD and brain and memory and focus. Anxiety, depression, going outside for 5 minutes first thing in the morning and letting the sun be on your face and doing just a full body meditation where you're just closing your eyes for a couple of minutes and feeling different parts of your body, feeling your feet touching the ground, feeling your bottom sitting on the ground or sitting on a seat, feeling the sensation in your hands and going all the way up to the top of your head. It takes 5 minutes, creates a ton of dopamine. Having your shower regularly and then the last minute in your shower, putting the water on as cold as you can handle it creates a ton of dopamine. Celebrating small wins, giving yourself, yes, I did it, creates a ton of dopamine. The dopamine that you get from substances is false dopamine. The thought of a drink does give a person dopamine. Having that first sip does give you a ton of dopamine, but it robs your brain of creating natural dopamine. It robs you of sleep. For a population like us who struggle with depression and anxiety, a lot of us in overwhelm, it is only going to exacerbate the crappy parts about having ADHD. I'm an ADHD mindset coach, by the way. My name is Sara Kelly. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. And if you struggle with your mindset, I do have a complimentary masterclass linked in the comments below that goes over the 5 pillars to creating lasting change when you have ADHD and you are struggling with your self-esteem, self-worth, and coming to terms with your ADHD diagnosis. I will also link this book in the description. I'm sure it can be used for cannabis use or something else as well. I know that Alan Carr also has a quit smoking book. There are resources out there to help. You don't have to quit cold turkey if you're not ready to, but if you're ready to start moving that needle in the right direction, consider cutting back. Your future self will absolutely thank you for it. Thank you for listening to this video. I definitely got a lot more vulnerable than I normally do. It was a hard video for me to make, but it is a message that I really feel like needs to be shared. If you're struggling with yourself, watch this video again. If you have an ADHDer in your life who is struggling, please share this video with them as well. I will see you next week in the next video.